This is something that nobody in your industry is probably telling you. And I think it is something that is costing your organization more than any single line item in your profit and loss. Now, your leadership team does not have, in many cases, they do not have a performance problem, but they have a wiring problem. And those two things are not even close to being the same thing. They're not close. People make the mistake of thinking they're the same thing. Right now, there is somewhere in your organization where there is a senior leader who is technically brilliant. They know the strategy code. They have been in the right programs, trainings, and they can put the frameworks. And yet every quarter, the results they produce fall below what they are capable of. Every single quarter. And this happens, and you can keep asking yourself, but why is this happening? What exactly is missing? Now, I'm going to answer that question today. And when I do, I want you to resist the natural impulse to reach for a simpler explanation. Because what I'm about to show you dismantles one of the most expensive assumptions in modern leadership development. The assumption is that knowledge produces results. No, it doesn't. And the research, the neuroscience, and almost 20 years of working with leadership teams on different continents, that for me has pointed to the same conclusion. There is a gap, and the gap between what your leaders know and what they actually execute is not a gap of intelligence, but a gap of wiring. We call this the friction tax. Now, just picture this scenario, right? A financial services firm. It's global, it's well-resourced, highly credentialed leadership team. Then it brings into play a new managing director to lead the most strategic division. The mandate is for the person to grow the business. The person has an exceptional track record, 2 previous organizations, 2 measurable turnarounds. On paper, this is a home run. This is good to go. But then 6 months down the line, nothing is moving. Nothing is happening. I'm painting a picture. I need you to follow me on this story. The strategy is sound, the team is capable, the budget is there, but somehow every initiative hits resistance. Meetings go in circles, decisions that should take a week takes 3. 2 of the most talented people in your organization or in the team have quietly started looking somewhere else. And then the managing director, brilliant as they are, cannot even understand why the environment seems to be fighting them at every turn. Now, here is what the board does next. And this is the part really that I want you to pay close attention to. And because it's the most expensive mistake in corporate leadership today in many organizations. What the board does is to call in a consultant, and the consultant runs a strategy review. They produce a deck, and then they recommend a restructure. They charge a significant fee, and 6 months down the line, the numbers are still flat. Why is that? I think this is worth considering, because they treat the wiring problem like it's a structural problem. They went into the engine room and then they rearranged the furniture while the fuel line was still disconnected. The real issue was never strategy. It was never the structure. It was that this leader, exceptional as they were, had a set of deeply conditioned behavioral patterns that were generating friction everywhere they went. And nobody, not the board, not the consultant, not HR, not even the leaders themselves, could see it. Because here is what we know from cognitive science, that you cannot see beyond the edges of your own wiring. Now, this is not a character flaw. This is what we call a scotoma. It is a neurological blind spot built from years of conditioning that makes certain patterns of behavior completely invisible to the person that is running them. The brain does not delete this information because the leader is weak. It deletes it because the brain's primary job is to maintain consistency with what it already believes to be true. So This is the friction tax that we've been talking about. That you are not just paying for underperformance, you are paying for the invisible cost of misalignment, misaligned wiring at scale. That's what we're talking about. I'm going to tell you about Lou Gerstner. He took over IBM in 1993. The company had just posted an $8 billion loss. The stock had collapsed. The consensus among analysts was that IBM should be broken up and sold for parts. Then Gerstner came in. Pay attention to what he did. He did not just revise the strategy, he went after the wiring. Let me repeat that. He went after the wiring. And years later, reflecting on the most important insight from that turnaround, he wrote these words, and I want you to hear them precisely as he said them, because they, I would say, are among the most under-referenced sentences in all of executive leadership. Listen to what Gerstner said. He said, "I came to see in my time at IBM that culture isn't just one aspect of the game, it is the game. In the end, an organization is nothing more than the collective capacity of its people to create value. Nothing more than the collective. It's the collective capacity of your people to create value, not the strategy, not the structure, and not the technology. The people, and specifically how they are wired to think, to communicate, and to behave under pressure. That changes the game for you." And this is what Gerstner rebuilt, not IBM's plans, IBM's people, their internal operating system. And that is precisely what we're talking about today. So let me show you exactly how this works, because understanding the friction tax is one thing. Then understanding why it persists and what actually resolves it is where this conversation really gets interesting. There are three layers. There are three layers to this, and I want to walk you through each one of them. Now let's talk about layer one. This is the self-image ceiling. Lou Tice was one of the most rigorous thinkers in our century when it comes to cognitive performance science. He built an entire educational system around a single foundational promise. We do not act according to our potential. We act according to our beliefs about our potential. It's not about your potential, it is what you believe your potential is. What this means in practice, and this is critical for anyone leading a team, is that every leader on your payroll has an internal operating image of themselves, a self-concept of themselves. And their creative subconscious, which is that part of the brain that runs behavior automatically, will do everything in its power to keep their actual performance consistent with their image. This is not just one complicated stuff. It's a way a man thinketh of himself that he's going to be. So when you put a high performer into a new context that demands a different version of them, a broader version, a more senior version, and their self-image has not expanded to meet that context, the creative subconscious will quietly, invisibly pull them back. So when you put a high performer in a new context that demands a different version of them, a broader version, a more senior version, and their self-image has not expanded to meet that context, the creative subconscious will quietly and invisibly pull them back, not because they lack the talent, but because their internal wiring says, well, this is not who I am, okay? This is not who I am. That's what the internal wiring tells them. And this is why conventional training, more often than not, fails. You can teach a leader every communication framework that exists. You can put them through every workshop, every module, every certification. And if you have not really touched the self-image, if you have not gone into their wiring, the training evaporates inside of 60 days. Now, layer number 2, this is what we call the intelligence mismatch. Valen Nasmith, in her work on the business mind, maps out 4 intelligences that every leader must integrate to drive genuine transformation. First, it's financial intelligence. Second, customer intelligence. Third, data intelligence. And what she calls mastermind intelligence, the ability to generate and supply collective insight across a team. Now, here is where many organizations make that critical error or mistake. They invest heavily in one of the dimensions of intelligence, usually financial acumen or technical expertise, and then they act surprised when that leader generates friction in all the other dimensions. A leader who is exceptionally strong in analytical processing but has not developed their emotional and behavioral awareness will make decisions that are logically sound, relationally catastrophic every time, without exceptions. So pay attention to how this works in your organization, because the brain's default is not optimal performance. The brain's default is familiar performance. And familiar performance in a scaling organization is the friction tap, because you want to default to what is familiar. And friction exists. Layer number 3 is the connection deficit. John Maxwell does not say that great leaders communicate well. He says that great leaders connect. They connect. And those two things are not the same thing. People mistake that, because you can be an excellent communicator but a terrible connector. Communication is the transfer of information, and connection is the transfer of influence. And in a high friction organization, you will find leaders who are extraordinarily proficient at the first and almost entirely absent from the second. They send the emails, they run the meetings, they deliver the presentations, nothing moves. Because the people that are receiving the communication do not feel seen, they do not feel understood, and they do not feel valued by the person that is delivering it. So John went on to identify what he calls the signals. How people go to put extra effort, there's unguarded openness, growing synergy, so positive energy, and these things are measurable. They are observable in your teams right now if they exist. And if it's a friction-heavy environment, they are almost entirely absent. So put these 3 layers together that I have shared with you. The self-image ceiling, the intelligence mismatch, and the connection deficit. That is the anatomy of the friction pattern. Now, you can see why a strategy review, a training program will not touch it, because it lives below the surface of all of those interventions. It lives in the wire. So what do you actually do with all of this information I'm sharing with you? And I want to give you 3 things that you can do. These are not just concepts, they're actions that you can take in your organization this week. Action number 1, run a friction audit. Not a performance review, it's a friction audit. How do you do that? In your next one-to-one with each direct report, do not start with results, start with this question. Ask the person, where in your work right now do you feel that things feel harder than they should? And then this is the critical part. Do not try to fix it, just listen. What you are listening for is where their own wiring is creating resistance that they cannot see. Now, when a leader you're speaking with blames the structure, the team, the systems, but never names their own behavior as a variable, that is them directly sitting on a blind spot, sitting on a Scotoma. Action number 2, map the intelligence profile of your leadership team. How do you do that? Take your top 5 to 7 leaders, depending on the size of your organization, and honestly assess where each of them is, or where each of them is operating strongly and where there is a genuine gap. Not in their technical skills, but in their behavioral impact. Who in that group is strong on analysis, but generates resistance in meetings? Who is highly relational, but when it comes to having difficult conversations that drive execution, they shy away? You see, the mismatch between intelligence profiles is almost always where friction is being manufactured. These people have different maps, even if they're within the same territory. Now, action number 3 says how your leaders open their communications. Not what they say, but how they begin. How do you do that? You see, Maxwell is emphatic on this. He said, connection is established or lost within the first 60 seconds of any interaction. Before the strategy is presented, before the feedback is given, before the ask is even made, if your leaders open every communication from their own agenda, their own priorities, their own urgencies, they are broadcasting disconnection before they have even said anything of substance. You see where this is going? So, this week, sit in one meeting that you ordinarily wouldn't sit, and do not evaluate the content, evaluate the opening? Does the person leading that meeting create a moment of human connection before they even start or move into business? Or do they open with a slide deck? That single observation will tell you more about the friction in that team than a month of performance data presented to you. I want to leave you with a single question that I think is worth sitting with before your next leadership meeting, your next board, maybe your next board conversation, or maybe your next hire. Here's the question. If the gap between what your leaders know and what they execute is not a knowledge problem, and it is usually not, then what are you actually investing in when you invest in leadership development? Are you just filling heads with frameworks, or are you rewiring the operating system? Because the two investments produce different results, whether you're investing in frameworks, just knowledge, or your information, or you're investing in behavioral change. And the difference between this is measurable in time, talent, retention, in execution velocity, and in the trust that your teams either have or do not have in the people who lead them. Now, if this is really landed for you, if you recognize any version of this in your organization, I want to invite you to go deeper. Drop the word friction in the comment section below and tell me where you experience some friction in your organization, because probably the next conversation that will follow will be the most valuable conversation you'll have this week. My name is Stallone-Obaraemi. My sincere desire for you, my friend, is that you go on succeeding by becoming a better version of yourself. And bye for now.